We are following a shocking double murder that is rocking a community in Kentucky. This woman, allegedly killed by the man you see her with in this picture. Her 13-year-old daughter also lost her life, allegedly at the hands of that man. A mom and daughter found dead inside their home after the mom didn't show up for work. The suspect, now in custody, found hours away in a hospital. Not only was he someone who had a criminal record, we've also learned that he's already served time in prison for killing someone more than 2 decades ago. We're on the case, presented by Law & Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. If the suspect in this story is guilty of what he's accused of, he is the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing. The type of person who wanted you to believe that the evil in his life was behind him, that he had turned his life around for the better, that he was having a positive impact on the people around him. Allegedly, that could not be furthest from the truth. His name is Joshua Cottrell. Here he is with the woman he allegedly murdered in Moorhead, Kentucky last week. Her name, Kayla Blake. She was 37 years old, and Cottrell was apparently dating Kayla. In fact, he said he loved her on social media. Kayla also had a daughter named Kennedi McCracken. Here's a picture of the two of them together. Kennedi was just 13 years old. She loved playing softball. Kennedi and her mom seemed like loving and genuine people. Here's a video of Kayla that was posted on Facebook. A lot of people memorializing the two of them today on social media. And when you look at pictures of the two of them, you wonder who would want to hurt these people. It's something so many people in Rowan County, Kentucky are asking right now as you take a look at what the scene was on Friday, September 19th, outside of Kayla's home. The vehicle belonging to the local coroner parked outside. Kentucky State Police say they went to Kayla's home for a welfare check around 10 o'clock that morning because she hadn't shown up for work. She was a registered nurse. She worked at a facility that helped people who were overcoming addiction. Inside the home, investigators found Kayla and 13-year-old Kennedi dead. At the time of this recording, we do not know the cause of death, but the Rowan County coroner said they found, quote, 2 obvious deceased individuals in the house. Someone who they didn't find on scene was Kayla's boyfriend, Joshua Cottrell, the man she was with in so many pictures on social media. Now, I want to talk about Joshua here for just a moment. We really need to dive into his shocking criminal record. Now, clearly, he has a ton of face tattoos, but he really tried to publicly push back on any sort of negative first impression the face art might give, even though he had an anarchy symbol tattooed under his cheek and what appears to be a 666 tattooed above his left eye. But you can see he was someone who would post Bible verses. He wore a cross. He tried to make you believe that all of that was behind him. And he was also someone who spoke to people about the journey he said he was on.
So just a little bit about myself. I grew up in a bad home. It wasn't the best. It probably wasn't the worst, but it was very abusive. And I don't really like talking about it.
Now, this is a video I found of Cottrell speaking at a job readiness program in Kentucky about how he had been working on himself since being released from prison. Now, he told this group that he grew up angry, that he grew up in foster homes, he spent time in juvie halls. He also said that he served time in prison from 2003 to 2019, but all the bad stuff was in the past. Let's dive into that prison sentence. Now, according to Cottrell, he served 16 years in prison. Now, we found out that is related to a previous case from 2003 where he killed someone. This is Cottrell's mugshot from back then. You can see this was before he had all the tattoos. This is per WAVE-TV out of Louisville. Now, Cottrell went on trial for the murder of a man named Richie Phillips in Elizabethtown, Kentucky in 2003. Prosecutors argued that Cottrell killed Phillips in a motel room and then stuffed his body in a suitcase and dumped it in a river that a fisherman later found. Now, Cottrell admitted that he did kill Phillips, but he argued it was in self-defense. This is video from his 2003 trial per WLEX-TV. Cottrell claimed that Phillips, who was gay, was trying to sexually assault him. Cottrell also said that he panicked after he killed Phillips, so he put his body in a suitcase and dumped it in a river. A jury convicted Cottrell, but not of murder. He was convicted of second-degree manslaughter. According to WLEX, Cottrell was granted parole in 2007, just 2.5 years into his 20-year sentence. Now, that does seem to be a little different than what Cottrell was telling people when he was giving his life story, that job readiness group, when he said he had served time between 2003 and 2019. Once he was out of prison, at some point, he met 37-year-old Kayla Blake, and the two of them, they were both in each other's profile pictures. He would often post TikToks dedicated to his girlfriend. He proudly displayed that they were in a relationship on social media, but now he is accused of murdering her and her teenage daughter, Kennedi, who he is also friends with on Facebook. Hours after police discovered the bodies of Kayla and Kennedi inside that home, they were able to track Joshua Cottrell down, but he was more than 4 hours away at a hospital in the area of Paducah, Kentucky, which is in the far western part of the state. It's unclear what kind of injuries Cottrell had, but when he was released from receiving care at the hospital, Kentucky State Police put him under arrest and charged him with 2 counts of murder and a count of tampering with physical evidence. There are some major questions that still need to be answered in this case, including what Kayla and Kennedi's cause of deaths are, as well as what evidence law enforcement have that specifically links Cottrell to their murders. Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I need to talk about our sponsor, Fume, because if you ever notice how some habits just sneak into your day without you even realizing it, for a lot of people that means reaching for something on autopilot because you're stressed or run down, even though you know it's not good for you. Which is why I want to tell you about our sponsor, Fume. It's an award-winning flavored air device that's great for combating oral fixation and fidgeting. It delivers great taste as your usual pick-me-up without any harmful chemicals. So instead of inhaling vapor, you simply breathe in natural, non-toxic flavors that satisfy the craving without the downside. Fume isn't about quitting, it's about replacing. It's a flavored air device that gives you that same hand-to-mouth habit, but without the downsides. And there's no vapor, no nicotine, just natural, non-toxic flavors. What I love the most really is the design. It's a sleek wooden piece. It feels great in your hand, and it has a magnetic fidget feature that is surprisingly satisfying, so it's perfect for if you're stressed or you just need something to keep you focused. Plus, it's portable. You can take it anywhere. One flavor that a lot of people love is the crisp mint. It is a go-to, super refreshing, perfect for keeping you sharp throughout the day, and there are tons of flavors to pick from, so you can find your favorite. More than 500,000 people have already made the switch to Fume as part of their habit change journey, and if you're ready to try it for yourself, now's the time. For a limited time, if you order the Journey Pack using my code, you'll get a free Fume topper, which is an awesome accessory to level up your experience. You want to click the link, tryfume.com/lawandcrime, or scan the QR code on your screen to get yours today. Joining us now to talk more about this is Colonel Alex Payne of the Bullitt County Sheriff's Office in Kentucky. This is not a case in your county, but great to have your insight on this. Very shocking and sad story. Just from what you've read thus far, what sticks out to you about this suspect and what we're learning about him?
Man, you've heard that old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Have you seen this guy?
Oh my God. I mean, you see the face.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
Yeah. I mean, fully tatted up. I mean, from forehead to feet probably. And, I mean, if you were going to look up the word, criminal in the dictionary, you'd probably see that same picture, sitting there beside that word. That's just from a physical standpoint, but that's all backed up by his prior record. And, this has been a violent individual for a long time. And it's just a shame that he was back out to basically do the same thing again to 2 more people.
When you look back at his prior record, so it was this 2003 case where he admits to killing a man named Richie Phillips in a motel. He claims self-defense. He puts the body in a suitcase, which is later found by a fisherman, and it's being reported that he served about 2.5 years. That's how long it was in there, and then he got probation after that. First off, what's your response to it? And look, the jury made a decision back in 2003 that it wasn't murder, it was second-degree manslaughter. For a self-defense case like that, what sticks out to you?
Well, I mean, just common sense, Chris. I mean, God forbid, say you were to defend your home or defend yourself, defend a family member, a friend, or what have you, which would indicate self-defense. I mean, would you literally go ahead then and stuff the individual that you had to use deadly force on in a suitcase? Probably not. You know, most people who have would have to do that, as horrible as it may be. To take a human life. They're going to stand around, wait for law enforcement to get there and explain themselves. They're not going to, stuff the evidence, in this case, a body, in a suitcase, then tossed in the river like it's garbage. But again, this is just part of the puzzle of this guy. I mean, he's just that type of human being. I mean, he's truly evil.
Yeah, and you look at, you have the face tattoos, and you sit there, and I know a lot of people might say, okay, he had, something going on in his past, even though he has, I think it was an anarchy symbol on his cheek, and then I also saw 666 across the top of one of his eyes, but then he's posting Bible verses, he has a cross on, he's really making people make it believe as if like all of that stuff is in the past. When someone serves a sentence as light as that for as serious a crime as what was committed in the legal system, that was what the outcome of the trial was. I mean, how can people keep an eye on someone knowing that they had that in their past, but then at the same time saying, okay, he's going to go on and live his life?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know, I don't know anything about that particular case. I know, the guy got, served a little over 2 years for a crime like that, which is appalling to me personally. And then, the guy gets out and, what punishment was there? What even if you look at it from a rehabilitation standpoint, how much rehabilitation could have been done in 2 years? Did the price, did he pay for that crime? No, in my opinion, not at all. And so what was the deterrence from committing that first crime that may have come into his thought pattern to prevent him from doing the second crime? It's zero. He didn't, there was no punishment. So, what's he got to lose?
And in terms of this crime, there's still a lot that at the time of this recording we don't know. We don't know the cause of death. We don't know the specific evidence that law enforcement found in the house that made them say that he was the person who was responsible. But if you're responding to a scene, and in this case it was a wellness check because Kayla, the mom, didn't show up to work, and then you find two bodies in the house, take us into the investigation of what are some of the first things you're doing on scene, trying to gather evidence and piece together what happened inside the home.
Well, the law enforcement has obviously done an outstanding job to be able to put this together, and at least come up with a suspect and have that suspect in custody like they have in this particular case. But the first and foremost on the minds of all police officers responding to this is preserve that scene, because within that scene lays clues that could indicate the individuals that could be possibly responsible for that crime. Because at the end of the day, we have to collect and preserve factual evidence to help a prosecutor obtain that conviction. And so that's all part of putting that case together. So that crime scene integrity is first and foremost when you show up to something like that.
And when it comes to gathering the evidence, you're going to have two bodies there, and you want to make sure that that's preserved. And I know that, to just think of a young 13-year-old girl, and we'll see what the coroner says in terms of the time of death when it comes out. But what are some of the things you're looking for around the house? Like when you say preserve the crime scene, what are some of the items that maybe for us who just are on the outside, we may not recognize that you have to look for when you enter that home?
Well, I'll say it, first and foremost, looking at taking in the scene as a whole. How much blood do you have? And then there are those areas, that you're going to have to take a close look before you even start stepping in there. And because the direction, of that blood may be able to tell you some things, the splatter and different things like that. Do you want to look and see, even before you go in, was there signs of forced entry or not? That can tell you a whole lot. Did the individual possibly know, who they let in the door? Or Was that door forced in, broken in? It's so there's a lot of things that that you're looking at that are going through your mind at that particular time. Disturbed, the area that was disturbed around. Is there anything taken? From the home, like do you go upstairs and you find, say, a personal safe that's empty, been broken into, and they're on the floor, which could possibly lead more toward to a robbery motive. So you're taking everything into consideration. That's why you have photographs, video, all the things that we have available to us today from a technology standpoint to preserve, what that first look and that crime scene in general, so you can always go back and take repeated looks.
When it comes to piecing, you're trying to figure out who would do this.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at Kayla's social media, there's a picture of her with the suspect.
Yeah.
In her profile picture, she's clearly in a relationship with him. But if you were one of the investigators on this and you see what he looks like, and then on top of that, you look into his history and you see the second-degree manslaughter conviction back from 2003, what is that moment like for the investigator when you start to get that lead to at least knowing you have to question this guy?
Yeah, and it's all part of a process of elimination. So right there, you're starting to develop the things that you just put forward. A series of, well, let's just call them puzzle pieces. And the more that I can put together, the stronger my lead is. Now, I have to do my due diligence as an investigator I can absolutely stand in front of a judge and a jury, and say, this person did this or that person did not do this based upon what I did during that investigation. And so if I dig up, say, all the social media content, that I can, I find those pictures, I establish a relationship between a suspect and a victim. And then once I do that, then I go and interview that particular suspect. And then that interview takes me in the next step of the investigation, depending on what is brought out in that interview. So it's all just one piece after another. And the more pieces that I can put together, the stronger my case is going to be.
This suspect was found, to my understanding, all of this happening in Rowan County, and then he was in Paducah, which is about 4.5 hours away in the western part of the state. He was in a hospital. What does that say to you, that here is, these two people, the woman he was dating, she's dead, and then her daughter is dead,
Yeah.
and then he's almost 5 hours away in a completely different part of the state?
Right. And so you've got to, put that piece, just like the other pieces that we mentioned, where does that piece fit in? Did he commit that crime and immediately just, hot-footed out of there? What do we have, from an evidence standpoint that literally may link him to that particular crime scene? Can we follow his path of travel from the time that he left the house? Can we establish, number one, that he's in the area? And then can we somehow follow or track him from the time that we believe the crime was committed to when he was picked up in McCracken County? That'll be some of the things that they're looking at.
Clearly he's had experience in talking to law enforcement, and then I think when you look back at the 2003 case, he has experience in almost, I don't know if I want to say making excuses for himself, but he was able to successfully argue, even though he took a body, put it in a suitcase and sent it down a river, that, hey, it was self-defense, I didn't, I was the victim here and I just was trying to defend myself. What is it like to interrogate, if they're even going to be able to interrogate him? I don't know if he's just revoked his right to an attorney and he's not talking, but when you go into that interview knowing that he is one of those people who may be a smooth talker in being able to try to smooth things over like he has in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it all depends on the strength of basically what your investigation has led you up to at that point. Some things you may divulge, some things you will not divulge, some things you'll come and sort of filter around, the edges. There's an art to it, trust me, and there's people that are very, very good in my line of work at doing that and eliciting certain responses from these individuals. But the evidence, again, at the end of the day, the evidence is going to be the evidence. And, it's just like if he left any DNA evidence at that scene. Search warrants will be obtained, and we'll get DNA from the suspect, and we'll see if that matches. That to me, is a whole lot stronger than whether some prior convicted murderous felon what he says, because a lot of times I really can't believe a word that comes out of the guy's mouth.
So he's still, at the time of this recording, in the McCracken County Jail, and then he'll be brought back to Rowan County, 4.5 hours away, where this crime was committed. I assume it'll be some deputies that will pick him up and drive him back to the county where he's going to face charges.
Yes.
What's that drive like when you have someone who's accused of this crime, the investigation's still ongoing, you're in the car with them for 4.5 hours. Mm-hmm. What's the strategy going into that ride? And what do you start talking to them? Like, what is that like?
No, you don't say a word to them. You do the basics. You take them from point A to point B, and you make it very, very, very clear, that individual is going to obey every instruction that comes out of the officer, the deputy's mouth on the way. And so your whole job at that point is to transport this particular individual from one correctional facility to another for whatever comes next in the judicial process. And that's what you'll be concentrating on. There's not going to be any banter. There's not going to be any talking. And, it's just going to be hopefully just a quiet, secure ride.
And then as far as in Kentucky, I'm sure there's similarities in every state of how the criminal process plays out. Mm-hmm. But once he is brought back to Moorhead, Kentucky, where this crime took place, what happens next?
Once he'll be brought back, they'll set a court date. And, he'll go through the system just like everyone else, has the right to do. And so there'll be dates that'll be set up, and they'll either do it through video conferencing like we are now, or, he'll actually come into a courtroom before a judge. And at some point, they'll decide, whether this matter is going to go to a trial or if there's some type of plea deal, or, that'll all come out in the wash as this moves further down the road.
And again, we're still waiting on the cause of death, and that will give a lot of insight into what happened. Typically, when it comes to autopsies, how long does it take for, if it's apparent of how someone died, to figure that out?
Here in Kentucky, we've got some folks, the medical examiners do an outstanding job of assisting law enforcement cases with their expertise. And usually once they come to a determination, that information becomes available to us fairly quickly, once the autopsy takes place.
And then as far as the timeline, and I know we're still in the beginning stages of all of this, mm-hmm. but if there was a trial, if he's going to say not guilty, I didn't do it, and tries to go the full distance of the legal system, what typically is the timeline between arrest and conviction in Kentucky?
It varies, from place to place. In the more rural counties, that process most of the time is usually a lot quicker than it is around the larger urban areas like Louisville or Lexington. It's just caseload. Comes down to caseload and resources that prosecution has to apply to the case.
And if you can, I know this is Rowan County, Moorhead, Kentucky, where this took place. This story seems to be striking, really at the soul of people in that community who knew these victims. What can you just tell us about that part of the state?
It's a beautiful part of the state. Rowan County and Moorhead, great people in that part of Kentucky. And my heart goes out to all of them that were have been affected by this horrible tragedy. It's a heck of a thing to see something like that happen to neighbors, especially a woman and then a young girl. It's again, it's just proof that there is evil in the world, and it can hide any place.
Yeah, no, and it's just tragedy is a good way to put it. Just a very tough story. Out of Kentucky, Colonel Alex Payne with the Bullitt County Sheriff's Office in Kentucky. Thank you for taking the time to be with us on Law&Crime. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Now, this story, as you can imagine, is striking right at the soul of Rowan County, Kentucky. Kennedi was a standout softball player, and her school encouraged people to wear purple today in her honor, as they are still coming to grips and they are mourning her loss. Her mom was a registered nurse. She helped people who are struggling with addiction to overcome that challenge. Her work released a statement saying she was a proud mom who loved her kids, quote, unconditionally with every piece of her heart, and she made sure you could see that in everything that she did. The statement also said that Kayla leaves behind a son. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.